Welcome to the Executive Coach for Moms podcast, where we support women who are attempting to find balance and joy while simultaneously leading people at work and at home. I'm your host, Leanna Lasky McGrath, former tech exec turned full-time mom, recovering perfectionist and workaholic, and certified executive coach. Hey everyone, welcome to the 5th episode of the Taking Care of Yourself series, where we're focusing on bringing some attention to the importance of taking care of you with practical tips for how to actually do it, since we often have a tendency to prioritize everyone else's needs over our own. We have covered a lot in the last 4 weeks, and the conversation I'm sharing today is with Melissa Romano. She's an integrative somatic therapist, and I really loved hearing about her healing journey, and I know you will too. I feel like this is going to bring a lot of what we've been talking about together for you. I also really love that Melissa takes what she learns and then breaks it down and makes it really simple for all of us to learn some practices to take better care of ourselves. So I cannot wait for you to hear from her. Before we jump in, I wanted to share a quick reminder that the Executive Mom Reset Foundation's group coaching course will be kicking off in just a few short weeks. This is an opportunity to come together and meet other executive moms and really to start feeling more confident, more empowered, and more intentional at work and at home, so you're no longer running on autopilot. Head on over to coachleanna.com for all the details and to get signed up, and I really hope to see you there. And now I hope you enjoy listening to this amazing conversation with Melissa, and I know you're going to walk away with so many takeaways. Enjoy. I'm so excited to introduce today's guest, Melissa Romano. Melissa and I know each other from way back in college in West Virginia, and I love her work on helping you to kind of tune in with your body and nervous system regulation and healing. I love everything she talks about. And I think we both, at the end of the day, have the same goal in mind, and we approach it a little bit differently. I approach it a little bit more from a mindset perspective, and Melissa approaches it more from a somatic perspective. So I'm excited for you to hear her perspective today. So let me just tell you a little bit about her, and then I will stop talking and you will hear all about her. So Melissa Romano is a licensed social worker, educator, and content creator, passionate about making nervous system healing accessible and transformative. With a background in neuroscience and somatic therapy, she guides people from survival mode into connection and embodiment. She is the author of the Vagus Nerve Deck and creator of Connected Healing, her signature program. Through these modalities, Melissa helps people reclaim safety, self-trust, and resilience. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you and get to spend more time with you.
Yeah, likewise. I really appreciate you being here. So maybe you can start off and just tell us a little bit about you and what your journey has been and what's brought you to this work.
Yeah, it's so funny when people ask that. I'm like, I have lore. Like you said, we've known each other for a very long time. And, and if you would ask someone in 2003 about me, none of the words that you said in that bio are like healthy or that would not be the associations, right? I mean, like, I was not healthy by any stretch of the imagination. So I had a background of trauma and chronic stress, just chronic dysregulation. When we were in college, I started having more chronic pain. So, when I was young, I never felt good. It was like I had stomach aches or, just overall not feeling good, never wanting to go to school. I didn't feel like I was a good student, and turned into chronic pain in my early 20s. And then I was like, I've been to doctors, I go the gamut, I've done and tried all of these things. And, I want to figure out what I can do for myself, because I know I'm not treating myself well. I know I don't take care of myself. Like, I was very outward focused and driven by, external things. And, so I got into fitness because I think that's like the only tangible thing we really know, especially then. Like, this is the early 2000s. So it's like, yeah, you want to get healthy, you eat better and you move your body. So I started on that track and turned that into a career. And then I was like, okay, so I'm stronger. I have much less pain. I'm absolutely healthier, but I am by no means where I was trying to go.
Which is,
I just feeling good. Like I
yeah.
felt strong, yes. And I ate well. I certainly felt better, but I did not feel good. Like I still struggled with anxiety. I still struggled with depression. I still had all of these like GI things like started to kind of come about. So it was like I felt like it was whack-a-mole. Like I would take care of one thing and then like another thing would creep up and it's like, okay, so well, when do I feel good?
Hmm.
And I kept going on that journey. So it was like, well, then I got into yoga, and then I got into yoga therapy, and then I got into yoga psychology. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, this whole like concept that what I was doing, like whack-a-mole, right? Treating one thing
Hmm.
and another thing popping up. And this whole world opened up to me where it's like, wait a second, it's all connected. Like, it's all one thing. And until I treated and cared for as like one thing, it wasn't just what I was eating, it was who I was eating with. It
Mm.
wasn't just, following this exercise plan. It was listening to my body. It
Mhm.
was like the whole picture of my life.
Yeah.
And then it just, for me, when I recognized that and then learned more about somatic therapy and learned more about the nervous system, it was kind of like the glue that pulled all of those different pieces together.
Hmm.
Here we are. And every step of the way, I was just like, I would learn something and I'd be like, well, I have to tell everyone else. So I made a career out of my own healing, essentially.
I love that. I love that. And so now, do you feel good?
I do feel good. I do. I do. I feel all of the things. I will say that.
I love that. Yeah. So, what do you attribute that feeling good and feeling all the things to? Is it feeling all the things?
It's feeling all the things. Yeah, 100%.
Mm.
It was kind of learning that, that my thing of like, oh, I have to make it through this piece or I need to fix this thing to then get to the
Mhm.
feeling good. And when I realized that it's like, no, it's being able to feel all of the things and
Mhm.
not lose myself, that's when I would feel really good. When
Yeah.
I could feel the pain, what I could feel the injustice of it all, or whatever is
Hmm.
there, and still be present and still be connected to myself and kind of moving through the world how I choose to show up, not just like reactionary.
Hmm.
That's when I really started to feel good. And it was like I did hit a point a couple years ago where I was like, okay, so I'm just supposed to be like taking care of myself all day long. I like how stupid. But then my next thought was like, what else is there? Like, I'm supposed to just be paying attention to myself and like listening and taking care of myself all day. And then it was like, yeah, that's kind of the point.
Well, I wonder too, did you change your definition of what it means to feel good? Because as you're talking, you're saying, like, I feel grief and I feel sadness. And I think that so often we make those things mean that something's gone wrong, that something, it doesn't feel good. So it's bad. And like you said, it's
Mhm.
kind of like we put all of these obstacles in the way and put feeling good on the other side of them. So I guess how you would have described feeling good in 2003 versus how you describe it now, is that different?
100%. In
Yeah.
2003, I think, well, who knows what my, 18-year-old self would have said felt feeling good meant. Probably people liking me. I don't know that at that time I would have even had a concept of what my internal experience of feeling good would have been.
Mm,
Then I would have described it in thought.
okay.
What I think I would have described it in like external cues. Well, if
Yeah.
everyone around me likes me and is happy with me, that would feel good. I don't
Hmm.
think that I even had enough self-awareness to say, I my body would feel like a little bit relaxed. I would have a strong posture. My gut would feel like I can handle this. Like I don't know that I would have even had that like not only language but awareness of my actual experience. Like I think that it would have just been like external cues and like a checklist of things. And now it actually is how I feel. And I think I mean that on like a cellular energetic level too, like not just like my physical body. I'm 40, obviously I have some like aches and pains where I'm like, oh, my hips definitely get a lot tighter, a lot easier, and tending to that. But I think that even on that level, like my body feels good, my mind feels good. Like I would explain it in, do I feel connected to my own life? Do I feel like I am not in control by any means, but like I am actively choosing how to move through each moment? That feels good. Like I don't feel like I am like a fish on a hook in life anymore, being like drug around. It's like, oh no, I'm the water.
Ah, I love that. It's interesting because I wonder how we define feeling good, right? And you're saying it's like, it's essentially being in control, is how you've described it, but like not that, but sort of that, right?
Being in choice.
In choice. Yeah, I think it's like we, especially as high achieving women, think that like we need to always be in control. And I don't think that's what you're saying, right? But also you are saying that like you are connected to your life and you're actively choosing what's happening in your life, essentially, as much as you have the ability to do so.
Yeah, I think one thing that I teach and have learned, and especially as high achieving women, I fear that too often we're operating out of a protective response. Like we're operating out of a state of the nervous system. And you can say this so through so many different languages and so many different modalities. Obviously, mine is more in nervous system. So we move through in this protective, another part of us is operating. It's not us, our truest essence of self. It's right. It's like, if I do everything on this to-do list today, if I get all of this stuff done, if I show up and I do this, this, and this, then I will be safe. And we might not consciously use that language, but that is how we are operating. And it's not
Yeah.
necessarily out of choice. It's not necessarily out of connection. It's out of this sense of protection. Like, this is what I have to do to be okay.
Yeah.
I know that feels terrible because I have done it many, many, many different times.
My experience of it is that it feels good, like at that moment that you finish your to-do list. I remember feeling this way, where it's like acute feelings of good, where it's like I feel good in that moment, but like my overall experience that is not that is I wouldn't describe as good because it goes away immediately as soon as I start thinking about, oh shit, well, what do I have to do next? And what do I have to do tomorrow? Now that this to-do list is done, it's not like it ends.
And what's the cost? I look at so many different things in my life and I'm like, yeah, there were good things about it. And there were times, right, like you said, like, oh, that felt good. And then I'm like, I feel like I paid in a pound of flesh.
Yeah.
I had to trade literal pieces of myself to make it work. It's like, that's not living. Like, to me, maybe feeling good, this is how I would describe it now: living the width and the depth of my life.
Say more about that.
I think in those times where I was doing that and I had those like brief periods of feeling good, I don't even know that I felt like I was living my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like that width and the depth. Like, I have the capacity to feel so many different things and I want to feel them all.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the capacity to learn and experience and witness so many different things, and I want to do them all. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be an active participant. Like, I want to feel like I am all the way in. And, those experiences where I had like brief moment of glory, I never felt like that. Like, I'd get that dopamine hit of,
Yeah, that's what it is.
yeah, like this strong dopamine hit and then like a crash afterwards. And now it's like, obviously not to say that I don't get a to-do list done, because I do. It's not in the same way. Like, I'm not willing to trade pieces of myself for it. And I want to be all the way in. Like, I want to be an active participant and I want to experience it. And I want to be really, really connected to myself and
Mhm.
to the people I'm with and to what I'm doing.
What is it that allows you to, that you have the desire for feeling the negative side of things, right? Like that when you say like the width and depth, obviously that means positive, quote unquote, negative quote, right? Our society is so accustomed to like numbing out and tuning out and trying to escape those negative emotions. I mean, pretty much everything we do or don't do is to either feel some way or avoid feeling some way. And so I think, it takes a lot of work to get to the place where you're able to hold space for all those feelings that don't give you a dopamine hit, that don't immediately feel good. Why do you want that?
That's a really good question. And a lot of times when I'm talking about this, I think people get like a woo-woo kind of vibe, or they think of like Buddhist or mindfulness or something like that, which it absolutely does align with all of those things. And the truth of it is we are primal beings, right? And everything that we experience body first. So through our senses and through interoception, which is like the internal experience, right? Because our nervous system is constantly scanning our internal and external environment, like without your conscious thought. So your vagus nerve, right, and along with your other cranial nerves, they're scanning your internal experience and your external experience without you thinking about it. So we move through the world, we experience a sensation, and then the body is like sending messages to the brain. I think most of us operate thinking that the brain is sending the messages like through the system. And it does, but not as much as the body. So the body, the vagus nerve is I think 90%, I used to say 80, some people say 90% sensory afferent, meaning that 90% of the messaging is coming from the body to the brain, not vice versa. It's bi-directional communication, same thing. Like our gut is sending messages to the brain. So all of this comes in and it goes through this filtration system. And the first filter that it has to pass is, am I safe or am I unsafe? Right. And if we start trying to avoid quote unquote negative emotions or uncomfortable emotions or whatever emotions are there, that filtration system says, got it. Emotions are unsafe. There's no, these ones are good and these ones are bad. I know we cognitively think that, but that's not what will happen. What will happen is you close the road down to feeling the emotions. When we avoid, when we're like distract, I don't want to feel that. That feels uncomfortable. I want to feel more of this. That filter says emotions are unsafe and it dulls all of them.
Mm.
It's not like a two-lane highway where you can be like, actually, I want to feel these, but not these. Really. So my desire to feel those things is because I have a desire to feel the other things. So my option is feel it all
Mhm.
or feel none of them.
Mm.
And I want to feel all of them. And I think, to people that are like, "What? No, I feel some of the other ones." It's like, "Do you though? Or is it a fleeting moment and then you're back?"
Yeah, it just feels so antithetical to our culture that is like hustle, hustle, progress, progress, right? And I think feeling sometimes, a lot of times, I mean, when we talk to people about feeling, it's like, well, I'm afraid to go there. I'm afraid because it feels like a slippery slope. I can't feel that too much because I need to get these things done. And it keeps me from getting those things done. So, how do I succeed and achieve and do all these things that I enjoy doing and meet all these goals that I have for myself and spend time with my feelings? Like, how do I do that? And so, what are your thoughts about that? Because obviously, you've built a very successful business and do multiple things, and you continue to succeed and achieve. So, what are your thoughts on that?
It actually gives you more brain capacity.
Mm-hmm.
It gives you more energy. Being with your emotions, truly, it takes about 90 seconds. Studies have been done, right? The parts of the brain that light up, that are engaged when there is an emotion, If you are present with it, it takes about 90 seconds for that like the grip of it. I'm not saying that the emotion's going to be gone, but that like that gripping sensation. So I teach, and it's a DBT skill, which is dialectical behavioral therapy skill that I, made into a somatic skill too. But observe, describe, participate. So we observe. There's been a change in the system, right? I'm noticing something. Describe it using emotion language and sensation language. We are ditching the story of why we feel that way and metabolizing the emotion. So it's the language of like, oh, that, my chest clenched up and my fists clenched up and I feel like this buzzing in my arms and my legs and I'm going to stomp my feet, right? And then I participate in that. I let my fists clench. I squeeze my arms. I stomp my feet, and I let my chest like 90 seconds, and that will move through your system in a way that one, the one thing that I think we all want to feel is seen and heard, right? Your system feels seen and heard, and then we have more brain capacity because we're not spending all of this like drain trying to be like, don't feel that way. Forget about this. Don't let it bother you. Let it go, move on. And it ends up being this like spinning thing that, or we get stuck in the story of it. Like, he must think that I am this, this, and this, or she probably, is saying this, this, and this about me, right? And that is such a drain on your brain. And, when we don't do things consciously, it's the default mode network of the brain that everything kind of falls to and it runs, and that uses the most brain energy consumption. So when it's like, oh, I don't have time to do all of this, you don't not have time to do
Right.
it. You will use less energy. You'll build more resilience. You'll be able to do more of all of the things, including those wonderful things. And that feel good at the end of something or in the midst of something will last longer.
Yeah, I think it's probably our protective brain telling us like we can't go there. We need to conserve energy and seek pleasure and avoid pain, and that's it. And this isn't it. We just keep going. Just keep going so we don't have to feel this.
We are not so different from animals. Like that's why part of our brain, right, is called the lizard brain because we share it with all mammals, and it does not like to lose control. Like it wants to stay in the driver's seat, and that is not you. You know what I mean? Like that means that we are not in the driver's seat. We're kind of like being pulled around, like again, like the fish on the hook. When we're operating out of protective parts, we are not in charge. So it's like you're vying for control and giving it all away.
Yes. Yeah, I often call that the toddler brain because I work with so many moms.
I always say we're toddlers and taller bodies. Like when people are, I'm like, yeah, we are toddlers and taller bodies. Like we have to work, through the system. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I am curious because you've talked about protective parts a lot, and I'm currently taking a course on internal family systems and parts work, and I think it's so fascinating. And I've talked about it a little bit on this podcast. I promised everyone when I'm done with the course in November that I'll do an episode about that. But I'm curious, it sounds like you use IFS.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me more about that and like protective parts and
So I actually, when I did my integrative somatic trauma therapy training, I got to study a little bit with Richard Schwartz. So I think that the language of IFS is so helpful. It's like we are the self, right? Our truest essence, the deepest depths of us, like who we really are, is the self. So we have protectors and exiles, right? And the protectors, there's two variations: the managers and the firefighters. So the managers are like the proactive parts. So these are especially for, high achieving moms, right? The managers are often the ones running the show. These proactive, protective parts saying, if I do this and I do this and I dress like this and I have this car and I make this amount of money, then I'll be safe. It's like, like running around, like, well, I'll be okay. And then the firefighters are like the reactive parts, right? So the ones that the moment something is a bit uncomfortable, shut it down. Don't feel that. We don't have time for this. Keep moving. So we have those firefighters, and then the exiles are all of those parts that they are protecting, right? The more vulnerable parts, the often younger parts. And this concept for me was so helpful because mainly to know it paired really well with the way that I learned about the nervous system. Whereas, when we have an experience, why we feel like toddlers and taller bodies, right? We have this experience that comes into our system, and then that filtration system says this feels unsafe, right? And then our brain goes to the hippocampus, the amygdala. The amygdala is like the fear center, and it sets off the fire alarms. The hippocampus is our emotions and our memories, and it's saying, what does this remind me of? And it's like, when you search for your birthday now, like you're having to scroll through to, I gotta like scroll to find 1985. And that's how that part works. Like the part of the brain is like, what does this remind me of? And before I know it, it's like, oh, that time in 1996. And before I know it, I'm acting like I'm 11 years old. And I'm like moving through this moment, like, and that is a protective part, right? So it's like for me, learning, oh, okay, like all of these things came together. That's actually what's happening in my body. I actually am operating from this system that is that small child or this smaller age. And it's kind of like IFS, I think of it like I am the sun, the self is the sun, and the parts are weather. Sometimes, before I knew the language of this and before I was connected with myself, it would be like a monsoon, right? So I started to identify as the weather. That the self was like completely, I forgot that it was there. She was gone, lost to me, and the parts were operating the system. So for me, learning that language was super helpful because I could start to see my habits and behaviors and like recognizing this is not self.
Yeah. And I think as you're talking about this idea of like taking me back to, this time in my childhood, this is all completely unconscious, right? Like we don't usually, until we start to really get present with it, know that this is happening and that we're acting out something from a memory that's been stored in our bodies. The way that my therapist describes it is it's kind of like if you have a bruise on your body and someone like brushes up against it, then you're going to be like, ouch, right? Like it's going to hurt a little bit. And it's kind of similar that these memories, it's like, we've got this bruise or some kind of injury or trauma. And then it's like whatever's happening, there's a stimulus that's like rubbing up on that. And then we respond from that place.
Exactly. It's completely reactionary. And that's what I mean by connected. Like I have gone most of the time, not 100% of the time, from reacting to responding through connection. Like I have to be connected to it all to be able to witness what is happening and observe what's happening and then choose to respond how I want to, as opposed to reacting out of these behavioral patterns, these protective patterns, these nervous system patterns, like all of the things, right? It was just habitual patterns. Like I learned, at 8 years old, the way to survive this feeling is to do this, this, and this. And I don't want to do that at 40. Like, so often it's like, okay, I see you and I hear you. I totally understand why you want to respond this way, but I've got you. Here's how I'm going to respond. So it's a big shift in the way we view ourselves.
Yeah, it's like you were saying before about actively choosing. You can't actively choose a response when you're just reacting automatically and when you're not aware of it. And so kind of building that awareness so that you can respond. And I love what you're saying here about kind of making that decision of I'm not going to respond as my 11-year-old self or my 8-year-old self. I'm going to respond as myself now. How do you recommend making that shift? I remember seeing as I was binging all of your content on Instagram, which by the way, everyone make sure you follow Melissa. We'll link her in the show notes where to find her on Reclaiming Melissa. She has some really great content. But I remember you saying something about healing trauma, like the idea of healing trauma. And it's not always to go back to that place. So tell me more about that.
Like I said, I had a long history of trauma. And, like everyone else, once I started seeking therapy, I wanted to try all of the things. And there are so many things that are event-based therapies, right? Whether that is talk therapy or EMDR or a lot of PTSD therapy modalities are centered around event-based things. Going back to this time, talking about this experience. And, for a lot of us, it's kind of like, oh my gosh, like what do you want the 30 from when I was 3? Do you want the 120 from when I was 19? Like, do you want how many events do you want to work through? And it became exhausting. Like I was exhausted by the whole thought of it. And it's like, how do I remember at one point, like having a good experience in therapy. And I thought, okay, yeah, cool. If I keep this up, I'll be through it all in 130 years.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this can't be the only way. When I started to learn more about like the whole system and all of the things, and I have found like I made huge leaps in my own healing. And then, same thing with a lot of my clients. Not that I let that go, not that I don't still like, oh, when a memory or something comes up, that I don't still like address it and talk about it. But when I learned these different modalities, when I learned IFS, it was like, okay, wait a second. So it's not me, like, think of that firefighter, right? Like, that little girl learned this protective response. Like, when I feel this, I'm going to jump in and I'm going to put out this fire immediately. So it's like she's standing there, this little girl standing there with this fire hose, trying to put out the fire on this house that no longer exists. I've lived decades since that. I don't have to go back and say, like, oh, I need to rebuild this house and redo this foundation and like fix this house to then feel okay. I need to go and get her and like put that fire hose down and be like, hey, we're already out of that. We're 40 years old now. You live with me now. I'm in charge. Look around this house. There are no angry people. No one's yelling around here. Like, you're safe now. And that was like, I have cold chills even thinking about it. Like, still to this day, still do this as a practice and as a way that I move through things throughout my life. And the healing that came with that and the empowerment that came with that. Like, wait a second, I don't have to keep, and by all means, go to all of the therapy and all of the people, but I don't have to look for other people to fix this. Like, it's been me the whole time.
Isn't that always the realization?
Always. It's like, yes, you already have everything that you need. Like, so it just became much more relieving to me and much less like it wasn't a daunting task anymore. And it was like building a relationship instead of having to like, trudge through all of the pain and all of the, and I still feel it, but it's not like, again, like going back and having to fix it. The house is not there anymore.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do with it? It's like, I talk about these things like, oh, I need to figure out how to get through my trauma. It's like, I am through it. I already survived that. I need to figure out how to live. So that shift was like, okay, I'm on to something now, like, and I just started making these like huge leaps in my own healing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Reminding me of like evolutionary biology and how many, many years ago, the way that our brains were conditioned and built were to escape saber-tooth tigers and, fight and flight and freeze. And as we've evolved, we continue to keep that. And instead of it being a saber-tooth tiger, it's someone not liking us or an email from our boss or something that's like triggering this response that's like planted there. And it sounds like what you're saying is similarly, things are planted there for us in our own lived experience as well. So we've got a lot of things that are pointing us by default to respond in a different way than we probably would choose if we were actively choosing, because it's what's ingrained in embedded in our bodies in terms of our responses. We're just gonna
Yeah.
go and react, to your point earlier. And then we have the opportunity to choose to respond. So of course everyone's probably wondering, well, how do we do that, Melissa?
The one thing that I always like, this is the hill that I will continue to stand screaming on in the moments that we don't need it. And what I mean by that is it's the same thing as if you were like, okay, Melissa, how do I run the marathon? If I sat here and gave you all of these amazing running tips and like all of these amazing things, and you took excellent notes and you were like, okay, when the marathon, when it's time, when they say ready, set, go, I'm going to apply all of these tips. Like, how do you think that's going to go? And not only that, in this work, what we're also asking is like, how do I run this marathon and not do my old coping skills? Which is the equivalent of stepping up to that marathon and then me saying, okay, use all of those notes that you took. Give me your hair tie and your sports bra and your running shoes. Go. Like it's going to go so poorly and painful.
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same thing. This is, like you said, the saber-toothed tiger and the way that we've adapted our lives. We trained, or we were trained to look for signs of danger. So in this marathon training, we want to train our systems to look for signs of safety. And we do that outside, right? Before the marathon gun goes off. So it's like we create these moments throughout our day. So for me, one of the first things that I started doing was every time I walked into a new room, and whether that was like from my bedroom to my bathroom to my kitchen, or, you know, from my house to my car to wherever I was going next. Every time I walked into a new room, I looked around the space like, what do I see? What do I hear? What can I smell? Like, how does my body feel? And I started to consciously, right? Because when we bring our intention to it, that default mode network has to calm down because all of the energy shifts to like our conscious thinking and our intentional thinking. And it's like, you know, I noticed these things and I trained my system slowly to look for signs of safety. And I did that, right? Every time I walked into a new room. So then, you know, I started practicing that observe, describe, participate when it was lower stakes. Like, you know, a breeze would come through the window. And I was like, oh, that feels really good. I observe, I describe that experience, and I participate in it for a couple seconds, or, you know, a little annoyance. You know, I spilled the milk or whatever. And it's like, oh, I observe, I describe. So like lower stakes moments. And what happens is that skill building translates when it's time to run the marathon. Right? Like we are our new way of doing things, like our through that consistency, through those small actions. Now awareness is the skill. Like, oh, there's a big thing, you know, and I'm much more likely to be present, to be an active participant, to be able to start making choices in that moment because I have honed the skill of like, okay, I have this stimulus that is like triggering to my system, but I have learned like, oh, I see that and I see that and I see that, right? And I've trained myself to, you know, look for signs of safety, you know, and it does take practice. Like it's all about that rebound. How quickly do I get to that? But it's in that marathon training.
Yeah. I hear you saying like you walk into a room and you look around and you're looking for external signs of safety. Is it that we're always looking for external signs of safety before we get to the internal, or like how does that work?
No, you can feel anything, like
Okay.
so I always teach like there's three ways of connection, right? Connection to self, like our interoception, what's happening, what's going on in here. You know, are my ears up to my ears? Like, can okay, I notice that they're up to my ears, you know, or to the time and space. What do I see? What do I smell? What is the date? What time is it? Right? Like, what do I hear? And then that we can also connect to other living things, whether that's a person or a pet, or you know the air or the trees. You know, looking out my window right now, like I just saw them kind of like moving in the wind and connecting to that. So it's really just about connection and the most accessible way to you for you to connect in that moment. Because sometimes starting with something, an internal cue, can feel like a lot. Sometimes connecting to another thing can feel like a lot. I have found that in the beginning, that one of the easiest ways to connect is through that. Like, what do I see? What do I hear? What is accessible to you? So, like scanning, and the difference is it's always going to be scanning for signs of safety when we do it on purpose.
Yeah.
When it is subconscious, when it's doing it on its own, it's going to be scanning for it. So, us just bringing our attention to it in and of itself. So you don't have to actively be like, what in this room makes me feel safe? It's like the fact that you have the ability to intentionally look around the room is in and of itself sending the message of safety to the system. And that will then send the message to the brain.
Yeah. It's interesting. I'm thinking about a few years ago, I took this course called Positive Intelligence, and it was all about, we did these PQ reps throughout the day. So, like 3 times a day, we would have to do 1 minute of PQ reps. And it was like, touch each of your fingertips and feel what they feel like. Wiggle each of your toes and like pay attention to wiggling each toe individually. Listen for the furthest away sound, listen for the closest sound, right? And these little reps. And I remember that I was in a small group and so many people were saying, like, this is so simple. This is so like, is this really doing anything? Right. And I think it's so interesting how we tend to discount these like little, quote unquote, little things that maybe don't take a lot of time or effort. And we feel like we need a program and we feel like we need this obstacle and it needs to be hard. And if it's not super hard, then like, is it even worth it? Is it even doing anything? So, what are your thoughts? What do you say to that?
Try it with one of your kids and then tell me. And I genuinely mean this. Like, I started to come into my son will be 10, and I started a lot of this when he was around 2, and I also was going through a grueling divorce. So I'm like having to try to apply these skills, but then I'm like, "Oh, well, okay, I can model this behavior, right?" And when I started practicing it, like I will still do this. If I see he has this big emotion, I'll be like, oh, I observe and describe, and then like see if I can help him participate. I will watch, oh, that really made you mad. Like, oh, I can see you're like, you want to stomp your feet and you want to scream and cry, and like, oh, let's do it. And I'll do that with him. And I watch how much quicker we move through that than the hundreds of thousands of things that I would have tried to say and do otherwise. And then I'm like, yeah, yeah, there's a lot to this. There's a lot. And just like getting, yeah, like I watch that and then I'm like, is it that simple? And I do understand the frustration. I always say I feel like when I did a lot of this and it worked, I felt like Sally Fields at the end of Mrs. Doubtfire when she's like, the whole time, the whole time, the whole time. Could have just done that the whole time. Could have been doing all of this stuff. And it is because, again, when you practice this with your kids, when you watch how effective these things are, when he is really in like, it's intense and not as much anymore because he knows what I'm doing, but he'll do a little bit of it himself. But when he was like 5, 6, he'd be like just so dysregulated. I'd be like, what color shirt are you wearing right now? And he's like, blue. And it's like, where's your left knee? And he's like, it's right here. And then you just watching it come down on its own, and like his awareness coming back to like, and then it would be like, oh, you're really sad right now. And then like being able to work through that, watching how effective it is, you're like, okay, yeah. Yeah, this stuff does really work. Actually, we are primal beings, no matter what, no matter how much we've been domesticated. We are primal. So yes, it is very complex how we got here. Yes, we have very complex, intricate systems. Yes, all of our experiences have been complex, but that does not mean that the healing is not quite simple. Not easy, but simple. Those simple things is where all of the magic is. And,
Yeah.
maybe it's not as seductive, right? Like some of the other things that can be sold or bought, and some of the other things that are like, but you do this one thing one time and you will be healed. Like that's seductive. This stuff is not seductive. It's like, oh, okay, this is me, and how I engage with my life doesn't make it any less powerful.
I love it. Well, I feel like I could ask you 25 million more questions and we could talk for another 4 hours, but I know we're coming up on time. And so, is there anything that either I haven't asked you or that you feel really compelled to share?
I think the biggest thing is remembering that you already have everything that you need. All of this stuff came factory settings. Like, we from a very young age were directed away from ourselves or told like, we don't feel that way, or that's nothing to cry about, or it's not that serious, or you were little and you thought that you could climb a rock wall and somebody was like, no, you can't, you're going to get hurt, and you're like, oh, maybe I don't know, like maybe my body doesn't know. I always hesitate to say domestication process, but it's true. Like that is through that process, we were directed away from self. That does not mean that it's not already in their factory settings, that you don't already know or have all of the information, because you do. It's all already in there. It's all already available to you. It's all already accessible to you. That is the magic. Like you are the authority, and all of your providers and all of your therapists and all of your people should be operating like the support system, not the authority.
I love that. I love that. Well, where can people find you and how would they engage with you? What do you offer? Tell us more about that.
So all of my social media handles are Reclaiming Melissa. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, everything is under Reclaiming Melissa. My website is reclaiminghealthy.com. All of the information, my signature program, Connected Healing, it has a community and a signature course and like all of these little mini courses, and then live group coaching. I do still work one-on-one with people. And basically, like all of my social media, all of the things, reach out anytime. Like I'm always happy to engage and connect with people. Yeah, I have the Vagus Nerve Deck, can be found on Amazon. And my website has kind of everything on there. I do retreats. I will have live workshops. In October, I'll be at Omega Institute in New York. So all of my information is in my social media and on my website. And I just love connecting with people.
Wonderful. Well, I have loved connecting with you and I really appreciate everything that you shared today. I love this conversation and I can't wait for everyone to hear it. So thank you so much, Melissa, for being here with us.
Thank you again for having me. This has been delightful.
Yes, thank you. And thank you everyone so much for tuning in, and we will see you all next week. Bye-bye. If you're loving what you're learning on this podcast, I want to invite you to come join me for the Executive Mom Reset. We offer both one-on-one and group coaching formats, and our next group is starting in October 2025. I created the Executive Mom Reset to help high-achieving moms feel less anxious, more confident, and more in control of their lives. Instead of feeling like you're being pulled in 100 different directions, you'll learn how to pause, reset, and approach challenges with clarity and confidence. You'll stop running on autopilot, stop second-guessing yourself all the time, and stop letting stress, guilt, and overwhelm dictate your day. You'll walk away with the tools and the confidence that you can use every day to feel stronger, more empowered, and more in alignment with the life you want to be living. Head on over to CoachLeanna.com to learn more and to get signed up. I really hope to see you there.